Hello, welcome to the Adam Fitch Podcast. I'm the host, Adam Fitch, and today I'm joined by Kieran Holmes-Darby. He's the CEO and co-founder of Excel Esports and has seemingly just finished a world tour where he's been speaking on panels and such. Thank you for joining me, Kieran. I appreciate it.
No, mate. Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be here, and appreciate the wonderful introduction.
I'm a natural. So instead of asking you to introduce yourself as such, I thought I'd rather ask like how and why does Excel exist? So like how did it all come about and why did you start it really?
Yeah, so a lot of people have heard the story of kind of how it came about, but I'll happily tell it again because it's a great story and true. Which is my brother and I were sitting in a Wetherspoons pub in Lancaster, where I was going to university at the time. And we were discussing gaming and esports. It's always been a passion for both of us. Like we've always played games together. Whilst we were away at different universities, that was kind of how we bonded, I suppose. We never picked up the phone and called each other. We always would be like, let's hop on TeamSpeak or whatever it was at the time and play some games. So we're just chatting about that more kind of generally. And there were teams in Call of Duty, which was kind of our chosen esport, if you like, at the time, such as your Optic Gamings of the world, your Team Enviouses of the world, who we kind of really looked up to. And we're like, that's quite cool. I suppose you could call us fanboys of those organizations at the time. And we went, hey, like, why don't we just start our own? There's not really anything going on in the UK. And, you know, we feel we could do something big here. Went home that night, created a Twitter page, and it kind of all just went crazy from there, I suppose.
And how long ago was that when you started things? Was it about 5 years, have I seen, or?
Literally 5 years and 6 days ago. So we had our 5-year anniversary very recently. It was crazy. It was just very much a hobby, passion project, bedroom organization, all of those like grassroots terms to start with. And it just kind of, grew and grew year on year.
Yeah, so since then you've entered a partnership with Riot Games for the LEC. They call them long-term partnerships and not franchising. So you're now competing against, or like alongside, or whichever way you want to put it, really, against like some of the biggest organisations in both Europe and the world. So from that, probably about a month ago now, it was in October, I believe, where Forbes released a report giving team valuations and such. With some like ludicrously high numbers and valuations, in my opinion. I just wanted to get your take on that, really.
Yeah, valuation of esports organisations is an interesting one. There's no set way of doing this. You've seen that the valuations of all those organisations are, you know, X revenues, and they vary massively between the organisations. So I'd have to do some more digging into exactly how Forbes evaluate those companies and value those companies, but I don't think they're a million miles away, as some people have suggested. If I'm perfectly honest with you, like some of their reporting is pretty sound, and I can see how they've come to those conclusions. So I think a lot of people have said, these ludicrous numbers, you know, etc. And absolutely, you know, I think you're not wrong in some areas, but also I think in other areas they're pretty spot on. So I think it's the best, you know, league table, if you want to call it that, that we've got at the moment when it comes to valuations. I don't think we've got anything better out there right now. So at least it gives a guide as to what's going on.
Yeah, well, so I spoke to a couple of people once it came out, and I believe maybe not all, but some at least gave their revenue for the past year or as such to Forbes to run with. And I mean, it's easy to just give a figure, you know, but that could be truthful, it could be more accurate than some people think or not. But so I guess that leads me into kind of revenue streams, right? I think there's a serious problem there in esports for not just organisations but companies as a whole. Do you think organisations are utilising all of the revenue streams available to them right now, or are there missed opportunities as such?
The answer to the first question is no, but the answer to the second question is I wouldn't call it missed opportunities. I think at this point everyone is still figuring out their business model, and I think you will see we don't see ourselves as just an esports team. We see ourselves as a gaming and esports entertainment brand. So the revenue streams that we can tap into could be vastly different to that of our counterparts, say like G2. They could come up with lots of different revenue streams that we've not thought of and we don't really think is applicable to our brand. There'll be obvious ones that we all do, like your partnership revenue or sponsorship revenue, your merchandising. They're the kind of obvious ones, but the ancillary revenue stream, I think people will arrive at different conclusions, and no one's got like a blueprint. I have an idea and we have an idea of how we think we should do it. And unfortunately, I'm not going to divulge my full business development strategy plan to you, but we've got some good ideas that are outside your kind of normal revenue streams, if you like.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're sweating those normal ones well enough at all. Like I heard someone say on a panel the other day, they thought esports sponsorships were going to plateau. Like I couldn't disagree with that more. Like I don't think that we are getting nearly enough the value from a it's not sponsorship, it's partnership. So there is a slight difference there. But from a partnerships perspective, I don't think we're nearly getting the value that we deserve or we could achieve. And I think you're actually starting to see the more traditional like sponsorships from traditional sports start to learn quite a lot from esports, the way we're building out partnerships and the way we're building out like content packages, etc. So I actually think the growth there will still be exponential over the next few years. So I think the traditional revenue streams, if you want to call them, or the more simple ones, will continue to grow, as well as new revenue streams will come up.
Okay, well, we've seen Riot Games with LEC bring in like the likes of Shell and Red Bull and Chiba, Warner Music, and a bunch of other partnerships over its first year after it rebranded from EULCS, and obviously Excel Esports is a part of that. So I was just wondering kind of what you would say are the highlights and the challenges of your first year working alongside Riot Games and competing in the league.
Yes, I mean that kind of builds upon my last point, in that I also don't think that there are so many more non-endemic brands now getting involved in the space. I don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon. And I think we're going to start to see a lot more competition for partnerships. It's not just like fulfilling your quota. You're actually going to have to start turning some down and start going with competitors, etc., because I think there's going to be more competition in that market. And I think the commercial model that the LEC and Riot Games have created is the best I've seen in esports. I mean, I've not seen every league, and I've not been across everything, but certainly the way they have structured their league is spot on, in my opinion. And we've really enjoyed actually working with Riot Games as a company, and I think their vision is correct for esports, and the way they're trying to structure the league and the long-term partnership is bang on. And that's not my politically correct answer. That's my genuine belief in what they're doing.
Okay, so I know they don't like to call it franchising, and technically it isn't, so it's a long-term partnership, right? But even with, say, like Call of Duty, which was traditionally an open title for the longest time, anyone could come in and impress and make it, really. But even that's been franchised now, with people spending at least like 25 million to get in. Do you see, now obviously you've been exposed to it, and you see that there's a lot of kind of structure and a bit of safety and security in franchise leagues? Do you see XL's future mostly or entirely being in franchising and these long-term partnerships, or is there still viability in open titles for you?
So there are a few different models kind of being created now. So like the Riot Games model couldn't be more different to the Call of Duty League model, for instance. The Rainbow Six model as like a sort of tier 2 esport couldn't be more different to either of those titles. So I think each publisher is coming up with its own model, and there's no blueprint. I mean, as I've said to you, I think from our experience of leagues, that the way Riot Games are trying to do it is the best way, because although it is a closed ecosystem at tier 1, it's not a franchise system, so you still have you still have a lot more control over your brand, etc., and how you build that, and how you differentiate yourself to other brands in the league. So that's good for number one. But also the way they have built out, at least in Europe. So I'm just talking about the LEC here. I'm not talking about the or anything like that. Oh, sorry, my computer just shut down in a second there. At least in the LEC, what I think is happening is the tier 2 and the tier 3 levels are really being thought through. Yeah. So you look at the European Masters tier 2 competition in League of Legends, and the way they're trying to build out the 13 different regional leagues in Europe, and trying to really build a pathway for players to get noticed and get scouted. I think that model is brilliant. Obviously, it has its drawbacks for those organisations who aren't in the LEC. Like, I completely accept that it is kind of a haves and have not, but I still think there is a solid business model to be made out of a team just competing at that tier 2 level.
Yeah.
So I think the positives are the way they've kind of built out the full ecosystem. I think, some of, if you've spoken to their American counterparts, I think some people have reservations about how the LCS has done anything below that, and the Academy League hasn't really been what they wanted it to be, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just talking about the European model. Mm-hmm. That, for me, has made complete sense. As we look to expand, which we are, more than happy to do, we need a model that makes sense. And as I say, the LEC makes sense. So if a model comes along that is similar, we're going to say that it makes sense, and we're going to look at it seriously. But that's not to say that's the only model that can work. As I say, I think the Rainbow Six model is very sophisticated, even though it's an open ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've just seen, I think it was Eminem that won the UK Prem, probably spring or summer, I can't remember which now. I was there, so I should remember really. And then got picked up by Navi, and then went on to do very well there, make the Pro League and such, and that's majority UK team.
They won the whole thing.
Well,
they're like the best team in the world now, that Navi team.
There you go. So I mean,
it's pretty cool.
And for kind of a UK focused team as well, a UK born team, that's incredible. And obviously you yourselves are kind of representing Great Britain and the UK in the LEC. But I wouldn't say the UK esports scene overall is like as developed as others that are around. So what do you kind of think are the pitfalls and the areas for development or that should be focused on in UK esports?
Yeah, so I suppose Excel as a brand has global aspirations, but we want to be recognised as the boldest British esports team ever. We want to still recognise our British roots and kind of where we came from, which means we also have a duty to look at how we can help that scene get more professionalised and get better. So we're looking at developmental programs, Path to Pro. I think my biggest experience is with League of Legends at the moment, so I can only speak to that mainly when it comes to esports right now, but certainly what's happening in the university leagues and what's happening with Belong Gaming Arenas and all of those kind of Path to Pro and building out that kind of grassroots system, if you like, if you want to call it that. I think we need more of that in the UK, because certainly someone like me who's absolutely terrible at video games, I'm never going to be a professional esports player and have no desire to be, but I do have a desire to play in a team of people at a similar level as me and compete against other people of a similar level as me, and have that kind of competitive experience. And I don't think that is commonplace across esports, certainly in the UK at the moment. In schools or in universities, we should give people that ability to compete at whatever level they're at.
No, I agree, and I mean it kind of leads into it, but on a more like global level. So where do you see esports fitting into? Say so we've got some like mainstream and non-endemic brands as such coming in now, but where do you see esports fitting into the entirety of entertainment really in the next 5 years, and what role do you want Excel to be playing in that?
Yeah, so I think esports, as much as it's a catch-all term, is also quite a narrow term, in that esports is, for me, the competitive gaming element. Mm-hmm. We're always going to have that huge esports focus as a brand and have those, that sexy part to our business, which is the guys competing at hopefully a global, international level consistently. But our brand is rooted in gaming. I mean, that's really where it started, and it has that those kind of pop culture elements to it. Right. And I think our brand needs to supersede just esports and needs to represent that gaming entertainment kind of pop culture. And there's all sorts of different cultural movements that come into that, like different types of music, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's where I see our brand, at least specifically, fitting in. And I think esports really fits. It is kind of a section of what is a much bigger cultural movement, if you like. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's where at least I see it anyway.
No, that makes sense. Well, we've seen the likes of, say, like Drake with 100 Thieves, obviously, but before that he played Fortnite with Ninja and Travis Scott, and that blew things up there. But I see a lot of people cross-polluting or kind of misrepresenting what esports is and saying all of esports, or all of gaming is esports, all of gaming is esports, all of esports is gaming, blah 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 blah. But instead, there should be separate lines in my opinion. So say like the esports awards that was in Arlington recently, there was like a streamer of the year there, but that's what's the streamer got to, or content creator, for example. You can have esports content creators, I guess, like create content around the competitions, but there's a lot of, it gets rather messy, and I don't know if it's more beneficial or more detrimental to have like hard lines as to what's what, like a hard definition of esports. So mini lad creating content is obviously not esports, but then I guess they were doing that to kind of leech off of or like bring in audience members from gaming itself.
Yeah. I think esports is a bit of a misnomer, if I'm honest. If we could roll back the clock, I think we'd get rid of the word esports altogether, and we'd just have gaming and professional gaming and competitive gaming. You know, all these different types of gaming. There's casual gaming, there's competitive gaming, there's professional gaming, right? There's all of these different levels to it. We don't need the word esports, to be perfectly honest with you, but we've got it, so let's make the most of it. It is the term that really has hit the mainstream. So if it, you know, I think we can't really sit here and argue about it. I think we just have to get on with it and do the best we can with helping people understand the difference between casual gaming and esports and competing. So yeah, the esports award, giving awards to streamers who have never competed in a tournament in their life, doesn't make any sense to me. No. At all. There should be the gaming and esports awards, and then that kind of is a catch-all term, and then no one can really complain. Ninja being on the front of ESPN as the biggest esports star in the world, he's never actually made it that big as an esports star. You know, he was a pretty good Halo player, and he was a pretty good Fortnite player, but actually he's a gamer, and he's a really well-known streamer. So, you know, that doesn't help, but at the same time, should we be sitting here and complaining about all of that mainstream attention, or should we be trying to ride the wave?
Yeah. I'm the kind of person who will complain and then accept it still. I'm like, no, I want all this attention, but it does my head in. But no, so talking about awards as such, so I believe it was an organisation of the year that you won at the UK Esports Awards earlier this year. I think it was September.
Yes, we did it back to back.
We did it. So congratulations on that. But what do you think about award shows? Like, do you think they're necessary? And what do kind of awards mean to you personally and as an organisation? Like a two-pronged thing there, really.
Yeah, it's a really hot topic at the moment. I mean, for the organisation, like, don't get me wrong, it's lovely to have recognition for all the work you're putting in. But that's as far as it goes. I think, however, they are really important for the industry. Like, I actually do think sometimes we all need to sit in a room and pat each other on the back and go, hey, we're doing really well and we're building something really cool here. Yeah. And you were outstanding, so, you know, you should be recognized for that. Like, I have no problem with us all, you know, patting each other on the back once in a while and celebrating all the good parts of our industry. I just think it's really important. Mm-hmm. So I'm a fan if they are, you know, if they're done authentically, and yeah, they're done in a way where people are clearly in the know-how of the industry and not just trying to ride the wave, which people could definitely be criticised for sure.
Yeah, because I'd say we're all too busy to kind of stop and understand what's going on and the progress we've made, right? Because everyone's just kind of, I guess the scene's kind of like been built from the ground up, but by the people within it. Sure. And you kind of, before you know it, like 3 years has gone, and it's like, oh crap! Well, in that time, we've made all this progress, but you don't realize it because you're consumed by it. It's like every day.
Exactly.
I wake up, I go on Twitter. As soon as I wake up, I'm on Twitter looking at what's happened, looking for what pieces of news I need to cover on these Foots Insider today. Like it's ridiculous, and sometimes you don't look back a year and go, oh well, we've actually doubled in staff and done this and done that. So I understand that, but yeah, I feel it's
insane, mate. Like I was saying this to our staff members the other day. Sort of, we are all kind of patting each other on the back of how successful an off season this has been for us. We've had a good acquisitions, and everyone's just very excited about what we've done so far. So everyone was kind of patting each other on the back, and I was saying, like, guys, this is really important that we do this, because if you told me 2 years ago, Kieran, your baby is going to have a team in the LEC, or the EULCS at the time, I would have laughed at you and said, no, that's a pipe dream, and that is like the pinnacle, right? That is as good as it'll ever get for us. And then we're there, and it's like, oh, so we kind of climb that big mountain, and we're like, oh shit, there's a massive mountain over there that we've got to climb as well. And you don't really appreciate that you've just climbed a massive mountain to get to where you are. So it is really important that we all kind of look around and go, well done, everyone. Celebrate the successes.
Oh, without a doubt. But then you've got to think about as well, like where you're sat in right now. I assume you're in the Excel HQ, right, in Twickenham Stadium. Like, so I was there in September for ESI London, and I didn't get to see your whole setup. But I mean, like the whole stadium itself, from what I saw, is insane. So just like the achievement and the accomplishment of like that happening, like Excel HQ existing, is insane as well.
It's crazy, and again, if you told me we'd be working with Twickenham Stadium on building this, again, I would have laughed at you. So I mean, look, we've achieved a lot, and it's great to pat each other on the back, but we really haven't got started. Like, that's not, again, some form of line that I just want to drop in there. Like, we are so far away from what our vision is that we really have hardly even got started. So important to celebrate the wins. Let's not slow momentum down for Excel, for the whole industry. We still have to be looking at what the next thing is, etc.
Without a doubt. And I know you've got to shoot off in a minute. I'll ask one quick question. Where are you predicting Excel to finish next season, spring split, LEC?
Spring split, so first split with the new roster. I would be disappointed if we don't make playoffs and make the top 6 in our first split. The goal is not to make that until the second split, but based on the roster that we've assembled and the coaching staff we have, I would be disappointed if we don't make top 6. Okay,
that's fine. I just wanted to hold you accountable so we can go back to this in a few months ago. Look, you managed to achieve it because you're going to, right? I need you to rep for the UK and for Britain. So I'll say thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. Where can people find you in Excel on social media?
No, thanks very much, mate. Feel free to follow me. I post some interesting stuff every now and again at Kieran Holmes-Darby on Twitter. But more importantly, follow Excel at Excel on Twitter for any updates to the organisation.
There we go. I'm just Adam Fitch everywhere, so you should know that by now, hopefully. Feel free to subscribe. I didn't say that in the first episode because I am really shit at this, but if you want to see more of these, then feel free to subscribe, and thank you for watching. I appreciate it.